This is Igor again. Mark is not in the office today, so I'm doing this live stream on my own. Let's wait until we have more people piling in. We have 7 people. Good morning, everyone. Let me know where you're watching from and leave the message in the chat so that I can greet you all. And we'll wait until more people pile in before we start answering some of your questions. While we're waiting for people to post in the chat where they tuning in from, I wanted to share with you the screen and show you, let's see, I'll have to change that to Safari. Okay, quick update. We're launching the Expert Century course and it will go live on September 25th, 28th. This is another masterclass that we do on a regular basis. So from time to time, we go in live, and when you subscribe to the Expert Century course, you get access to 4 days of direct access to lawyers. So you may ask Mark any question that you may have about the Expert Century, and if it's not a key specific question, then Mark would be able to answer that question for you. But in all honesty, like who would want to ask any questions if the course answers all of it, regardless? So I highly encourage you to take a look at our Canadian Immigration Institute website, and then you will see the Expert Century course over there. So let's see. I don't know if no one is posting any comments or what's going on. I don't see any comments in the chat at this moment. Let me know if you posted anything. Let me just also go into YouTube and maybe I'll check in the chats on YouTube. Okay, I see there are some questions piling in, but for some reason they don't show up on my end, on my computer. So I'll just read some of those questions from YouTube directly. So we have a message from Spider-Man. We have a message from Shubham Gupta, how to apply for spouse H1B open work permit. Shubham, this is a complicated question and we had a consult the other day. At this moment, we don't know if there's any specific measure that allows spouses of the H1B holders who got their work permits, if there's any pathway so that they can get their open work permits without the actual primary applicant securing a job in Canada first. So in general, you would need to have a job, you would need to be employed in Canada, and then your spouse can join you on an open work permit. So that's the rule of thumb, and at this point of time, this is how we think your spouse can get an open work permit. Okay, let's see what other questions. And sorry guys, I don't see those questions in my chat, so there might be some lag before I can get to your question. Just bear with me. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so we have a question from Barry, and she says, "Hi Mark, this is not Mark, this is Igor today. I got my ECOPR, but RCC has not approved my address and photo. Is this normal? It's been a month. Also, can I travel outside Canada with ECOPR?" So, Barry, I will start by answering your question from the end. You can only travel if you have a valid PR card or a PR travel document. And PR travel document is a document that you may request if you lost your PR card, or if you need to travel on an urgent basis and you don't have your PR card yet ready and you're stuck abroad. So you can only be allowed into Canada if you have a permanent resident card. An ECOPR is not a valid entry document. Now, when it comes to approving your address and your photo within a month, I'm not exactly sure what do you mean by approving your address and photo. If you can shoot me an email with more details, I probably will let you know a little more details on how to proceed in your situation, or consider booking consult. Okay. Okay, Sarfaraz says, claiming points for 2 years of Canadian experience. And sorry, I'm looking to the side because all of those questions are in YouTube, not in eCam. Let me see if I can, okay, that should be better. Okay, so Sarfaraz says, claiming points for 2 years of Canadian experience, went for paid vacation in my home country for 40 days. Should I mention home address for that period or Canadian address? Sarfaraz, we would probably mention this as a travel history. And so your address would be Canadian address, but you would mention those 40 days as a travel history. Okay. Mark Grant says, I got a police clearance certificate with wrong option. Can I submit my ITA application of Express Entry? So I think you've got your ITA and now you're preparing your EAPR application and you got a wrong police clearance certificate. Well, if you don't comply with the requirements for your police certificates, your application will get refused. So I would not recommend doing that. We have Amit from India. And then a user with a username BS from Toronto. Hello. Okay, let's see, what else do we have? We have Sam from Winnipeg. Hi, Sam. Okay, let me check what other questions do we have. Yes, okay, so we have a question from Amit from India. Okay. So he says, if I arrive in Canada for the first time after permanent residence through Express Entry, and I assume you mean you land in Canada to get your COPR stamped, is it a problem if I come with a return ticket to India? I need to visit a home country after 2 months. Later, I will come again to Canada. Amit, there is no problem. So you're a free person. You can travel wherever you want. As soon as you complete your landing, you are a permanent resident. The only thing that you need to be aware of is that to return back to Canada, you would need a valid permanent resident card. And that card can only be mailed to the mail address in Canada. So you would need to arrange somehow to get that PR card before you return, or you would need to come to Canada, wait until you get your PR card, and then travel to India. Okay. Okay, Dennis says, what will you do if you are denied boarding your flight from your transit country? I'm not sure exactly what country. Okay, okay. Dennis clarified. My friend was going to Canada through Turkey and he was denied boarding his flight with no good reason. What should he do now? Dennis, that really depends on why your friend was denied boarding. I would recommend that you or your friend book a consult so that we can discuss this in detail. There's just not enough information for me to answer this question. Okay. Monsoon says, is IELTS only needed to get admission in the university, or does IRCC need it as well for study permit and PR afterwards? So Mansoor, when you submit your study permit application, you will notice that there is not any field that asks you specifically for your IELTS results. And you don't even have a field to upload your IELTS test reports in the document checklist. But what we normally do, we submit IELTS test reports along with the study permit application to show that you are competent and qualified to take the program. Now, if you have a letter of admission from the university, that would already confirm that you are good to study at this program. Now, for permanent residents, you would need IELTS results, but those would typically be different IELTS test reports. So to get admitted to the university, you would need IELTS academic, and then for permanent residents, you would need IELTS general training. So those are two different IELTS results, and you would need to take two different tests. But of course, with the study permit, you can include a copy of your IELTS report. Okay. We have a question that reads as follows. If we have differences in the name for academic documents and a passport, will there be any issue when we submit our expert entry profile? So I would include a letter of explanation. If you get an ITA and prepare your EAPR, I would recommend that you get a letter of explanation explaining that you might have two different spellings of your name and why you have different names in your academic documents. The other problem, though, is that you would need to get an ECA for your education. So you will also need to explain why your name is different on the ECA compared to your passport. So letter of explanation would be the way to proceed forward. It doesn't mean that if there is a typo in your name or if there is a different transliteration of your name that you don't have that education. You obviously do, but you will need to explain. Okay. Okay, so we have a question says, I have a question regarding expert entry filing. In my personal history, should I mention part-time work during my studies in Canada? Thanks. Yes, so the work experience that you get while studying in Canada cannot be counted towards your work experience, but you should nevertheless declare that work experience. So the way to do it is by listing it in personal history. So you can, yes, you can include that part-time work experience in your personal history along with your studies. Don't remain silent about that work experience. We have a question from DV who says, I was wondering how long I have once I receive my permanent residence to enter the country and I have my documents validated by a border agent. Is there a window to enter by once I get my PR application approved? So DV, when you get your immigration visa, it will have the expiry date, and so you will have to travel before that expiry date. That expiry date really depends on number of factors. For example, validity of your medical exam or validity of your passport. So you will have to travel before that date, and you have you can travel pretty much any day before that date mentioned in your visa. Once you get to the border, the officer will stamp your COPR. You will become a Canadian permanent resident, and then you can leave the country the next day or the same day. But remember, to return back to Canada, you would need to have a valid permanent resident card. Okay. Lovey Dovey asks, does a bridging open work permit comes with an automatic ETA, or do you have to apply for TRV if you want to travel while waiting for on PR decision? So bridging open work permit is not a document that allows you to enter the country. So you would need to have a valid visa or an ETA if you want to leave Canada and return back while your PR application is being reviewed. Okay, Hardy says, for the H1B Canada, once there is a stamp in the passport, how much time do we have until we show up to the border? Any time until the expiry of your visa. Okay, we have 38 people watching. Hello everyone who I didn't say hello to. Okay. Ross is asking, if I finish a 3-month construction home renovation program from a private trade school in Toronto, am I eligible for a certificate of qualification for additional 50 points for expert entry? And will I be qualified to take Red Seal exam for carpentry? That really depends on what that renovation program allows you to, how it allows you to proceed forward with your career. That really depends on the program. Okay. Ahmed is asking, can a permanent resident in Canada have businesses running back in his home country, or does he need to close all business activities back home before PR becoming a Canadian PR? No, Ahmed, you can run as many businesses as you want, whenever you want, and wherever you want. So being a permanent resident of Canada gives you more rights and opportunities, and it does not limit your ability to run businesses somewhere else. Okay, let's see. Sudeep asks, which express entry category draw will I be eligible for if I have a P&P nomination? So Sudeep, you can get drawn under any of those categories if you fit. For example, if you have healthcare work experience, you can get drawn under healthcare no program specified draw. Or if there is a P&P draw, and let me show you, that probably would be the best way to do it. One moment. Let me share my screen. Hold on a second. I'll change that to Chrome. Okay, so if you go to rounds of invitations, express entry. Hold on a second. Okay, so if you go here, and then you look at the previous rounds, you will see different types of the draws. So no program specified, everyone who has a valid express entry profile can get drawn if you meet the minimum CRS score. P&P draws are only targeting those who have provincial nomination and have a valid express entry profile. So you would have to have, let's say, 748 points right here. Now, if you have healthcare occupation work experience, and let's say you have a provincial nomination, you still get drawn under this draw. So that really depends on how many points you have and what is the category that you're trying to fit in. Okay, let's switch back. Okay. Let me scroll down to see the questions that I haven't yet answered. Okay, so we have a message from a member of our channel. He asks, what are the steps regarding the H1B open work permit? I'm still waiting for the letter. Once I receive the approval letter, what are the next steps? Do I need to apply for visa to a Canadian embassy? So when your H1B open work permit is approved, you will get a letter, pre-approval letter, and with that letter, you will have to appear at the border. Before you appear to the border, you will be asked to send a passport to the visa office center so that they imprint the visa. And so that visa will allow you to travel to the border, and at the border you will get issued an open work permit. You don't get a work permit in the mail, so you will get that work permit when you get to the border. So once your application is approved, just wait for the letter asking you to submit a passport. Ahmed says, hi Igor, love your calmness and confidence. Thank you, Ahmed. And for those who just watching this live Q&A, this is the second time or the third time that I do live Q&A on my own, so it's a little more tempting than doing this with Alicia or Mark, because there are some questions that I don't know answers to, and as I'm gaining more practical experience, obviously the number of those questions that are unknown to me will go down, but at this point I'm trying to do my best to help you out, guys. Okay, so Ahmed is asking, for the first landing in Canada after permanent residence, can we land at any airport in a city different from the one chosen in the PR application. Yes, you can. Even if you travel through Quebec, you have to show that you travel to your province of destination and you are not planning to stay in Quebec and live in Quebec. But technically, yes, if you're traveling to Alberta, but you land in Toronto, that's not an issue. Okay, so RK Vlogger asks, I have a question. While studying, I work in different places through employment agency, 1 or 2 days or a few weeks. How should I mention in personal history? Okay, so let's see. So every once in a while, I think you work for 1 or 2 days or a few weeks. So I would still mention this in personal history, and then provide a letter of explanation saying that, look, I've been working through the employment agency and spent 2 or 3 days there, a couple of weeks there. So I don't want to withhold this information. That's why I'm disclosing it in my personal history, and just provide a letter of explanation saying what was really happening. Okay. Bhatik Patel is asking, I obtained my full-time master's while working for a full-time job. So can I count both in the same year when I apply for study permit from India? Okay. Can I count both in the same year? So I'm not exactly sure what do you want to ask here. I thought that the question would probably relate to the expert entry, where yes, if you obtain if you work for a full-time job and you get your higher education, you can claim that work experience for the time that you've been studying abroad. Now, when you apply for study permit, you just have to answer all of those questions, and if it asks you about your work experience, and there is a question in the form 1294, you just have to explain that yes, you've been working, and then for your previous education, you have just to mention your master's degree. So yes, you must include all of that information in your forms. Okay, let's see. What other questions do we have? And sorry, this is all rough and tumble. For some reason, the questions don't show up on my end, and so I have to scroll through the chats. And the chat keeps scrolling up every once in a while as you post new questions. Okay, let's see. Okay, so Mai Salah is asking, I have a master's degree from Quebec, got a postgrad work permit, worked 24 months, 1 year left in my postgrad work permit. I applied in the express entry, but I was not selected so far. What programs could help me get a PR outside Quebec? Got no French. That is something that we would want to discuss with you in a consult. There are just too many factors that we have to factor in, such as your age, your foreign work experience, your current CRS score, and then all of the other factors that might be relevant here. So you most likely will need to move to another province, and depending on how much time you have on your postgrad work permit, maybe you will be able to secure a full-time job somewhere in Alberta and qualify under Alberta Opportunity Stream. Or if you would move to Atlantic provinces, there are some programs that allow you to get permanent residence if you have work experience in Atlantic provinces. So that really depends. I would encourage you to book a consult so that we can give you more tailored advice. Okay. So we have a question from Driv ZZTS. I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce your nickname properly. So he says, I'm from Argentina, senior software engineer with 6 years of experience, currently working at big American tech companies, earning about 150K a year. And then he says, no education other than high school. I haven't seen any way to get into Canada, even though I am a big source of income tax. So for you, my friend, you will either want to look for an employer with an LMIA who would be willing to bring you into Canada so that you can get some extra CRS points. And with that work experience, you can potentially then qualify under one of the provincial nominee programs. For example, Alberta Opportunity Stream doesn't ask you to have anything more than a high school diploma. So if you graduated from high school, that's enough in terms of education to qualify under this program. But you will have to have 1 year of work experience in Alberta, and you will also have to have a job offer for the next 12 months, at least the next 12 months. So there are some options, and again, there's just so many things that we don't know about your situation, and I cannot give you a strategy right now, not knowing all of the details. The other thing that I would want to mention, and let me share my screen again. So if you go through the rounds of invitations, there are some category-based draws for STEM occupations. And so computer science related jobs fit within the STEM draw. So you would need 486 points. If you have 6 years of software engineer experience, you would fit under STEM. And then if you have something close to this score, yes, you can get drawn. And I know without any higher education other than high school, you most likely and almost certainly don't have score that is close to 487. You would probably have something around 400 or 380, 360, depending on your other factors and your language. But there is a chance that the score may go down, and there are some options that you can use to improve your score. For example, you can study French, or you can consider enrolling into the program and then qualifying under one of these category-based draws. So book a consult so that we can take a look at your individual situation. And for those who are wondering how to book a consult, all you need to do is go to holthelaw.com and then speak to a lawyer, and then you can choose with whoever you want to book a consult with. So for those who speak Ukrainian, I can hold a consult in English, Ukrainian, Russian, Polish. Mark also speaks Portuguese, and you can book a 25 or 50-minute consult. And then Alicia, she speaks some French, and you can also book 2 consults, two durations with Alicia. Now let's go back and take a peek at some more questions. Micah says, hi Igor. Hello Micah. Okay. Taurai is asking, if I have a property where I do not have a permanent residency and then apply for a student visa, will it count as a strong tie? So I understand you have a property somewhere outside your country of habitual residence, and will that count as a strong tie? Well, Taurai, strong ties is not one specific thing that you want to show to the officer. So they look at a complex of different factors, including your family connection, emotional connection, economic connection, and then your real estate in the country where you don't live may not be as a convincing factor. So we have to see what other ties you have to your home country, and they may really depend. Consider the difference between the situation where an applicant is about 40 years old and has children and family and an elderly grandmother and some business commitments and real estate. That person would have a lot of things to show as family, as it ties to his home country. Consider that and compare it to a situation where an 18-year-old kid doesn't have anything, just graduated from high school, doesn't have any real estate. Does that person have a lot of strong ties? Well, probably not, but somehow those people have to get their study permits approved. So that really depends. That really depends on your situation. And as always, I would recommend that you book a consult so that we can take a look at your individual situation specifically before we can give you any advice. Okay, let's see. Okay. We have a question from Susid, who's a new member to our channel. Welcome, Susid. He says, before receiving an ITA, I had mentioned proof of funds as $22,000 for 3 family members. Can I make it to 0 after receiving ITA through PNP because I am under Canadian experience class and still working in Canada? So I would not touch your proof of funds, but with the when you submit an application, let's see, through PNP because I'm under Canadian experience class and still working in Canada. So under Canadian experience class, you don't have to show any proof of funds. And when you prepare an EAPR, it will ask you for proof of funds in your document checklist. So normally what we do, we write a letter saying that please note that I qualify under Canadian experience class, hence I do not need to show any proof of funds. I'm currently employed in Canada, so I filled all of the requirements, and I would include the screenshot of their page where they provide you with this with these instructions that CECs do not need proof of funds. You would need proof of funds if you do not qualify under a CEC and you're not working in Canada. And for example, if you apply as a FSW, then yes, you would need to show those 22,000. All right, Car is asking, is 489 CEC score have chance in general draw? Let's take a look. Let's take a look. So no program specified. The last draw was 496, and then 517, 505, and then let's take a look, 518, 511, 486. So technically, you would get drawn in the end of June with a score of 489. So yes, I would say that yes, you do have a chance, but please note that after this draw that happened on June 27th, they've been doing health occupations, category-based draws for French, for health, for STEM, for trade, and the score went up for those who don't fit into those categories. So the score started going up, 511, 505, 517, and then when they did another no program specified draw and drew 4,300 people, then the score dropped down. So that really depends on how many no program specified draws they will do in the next couple of weeks, in the next couple of months, and then the score potentially can drop below 496 to around 480, 486. Let's switch back. And sorry for those people who are watching on Facebook or LinkedIn. I don't see your questions on my app. So if you want to ask a question, just dive into our live stream on YouTube and you can leave your comment in the chat. Okay, let's see. Okay, Sahil says that he left a comment in a H1B community group about adding a spouse after open work permit is approved. Yes, Sahil, I'll take a look at that and respond to you in the community group. Okay, Nojan is saying, hey, I submitted my EAPR on February 7th. Once was asked for CV on May 15th. Since the background check is in progress. It's been 7 months since I submitted my EAPR. Does it make sense that I follow up? If so, how? Well, there are 2 ways how you can do it. One way is by submitting a web form and just asking to continue processing your application or ask for an update. That will most likely be inefficient and not result in anything. The other way how you can learn what's going on with your file is if you submit a request for the GCMS notes. It's also known as an ATIP request. So you're basically asking the officer to provide you with a copy of all entries done on your file. You will see when your file was opened, what checks did the officer do on your file, and you may see if the officer has any concerns. Why would they ask for your CV? Maybe there is some mismatching or conflicting information in your EAPR, and the officer is concerned and is just trying to collect more information from you to either approve your application or issue a procedural fairness letter, which may be a sign of problems. So I would recommend that you submit an ATIP request, and we do that as a firm, as a legal service. And let's see, let me just scroll down through our legal fees. I'll show you where to look for it. So access to information request to GCMS notes, we charge $500 for that. And then that fee includes the 30-minute call to discuss the results of your ATIP request. So consider doing that. Okay. Tayana White is asking if I have any prediction for the next EE draw. Tayana, I cannot tell you for sure what the next X% entry draw is going to be, but I think the scores will climb pretty high up. It's been almost a month that they are not doing any draws, so I would assume that the score will be somewhere above 510 if it's no program specified draw. If they do a category-based draw, that really depends on what category they do. So cannot tell you with any certainty as to what's going to be the next draw, when it's going to happen. Most likely it may happen while we're doing this live, but I would assume that if it's a no program specified, that the score will be through the roof. Anything on STEM category? Nope. No updates. Almost 2 months since they did a STEM draw. Okay. Jalei Wang is asking for X% entry STEM category draw. Does the STEM knock has to be my primary occupation knock? It doesn't really matter. As long as you have work experience in that knock code, you're good. Okay, let's take a look at previously posted questions. Wilpula is asking, so do I understand correctly, a spouse of an H1B open work permit will not get a work permit until the spouse gets a job offer? If so, how would the spouse get a job without a work permit? Okay, so Velpula, primary applicant is the H1B holder who applied for the H1B for the open work permit. His spouse is a dependent, and if that spouse was not included in the application along and submitted at the same time with the primary applicant and applied with at the same time with the primary applicant, then that spouse would need to wait until the primary applicant gets a job in Canada, and only then the spouse can request an open work permit and come to Canada. That's our position at this point of time. We're waiting for more details as to how to, maybe the government is trying to come up with something else and something is in the works, but at this point of time, as we don't have any specific instructions, that's the general rule, and we believe that yes, until the primary applicant cannot get a job in Canada, his spouse that was not included in the application will have to wait. Once the primary applicant has a job, then his spouse can apply. Okay. Rihman is asking, as per immigration rules 75(2), a federal skilled worker for scheduled for worker eligibility, part-time work experience equivalent to 1 year of full-time work is required. Could it be 15 hours per week for 2 years or 7.5 hours for 4 years? Yes, it can, but make sure that you have enough work experience within the last 10 years. to claim points for it. Batik, I think I've answered your question about the full-time work experience and your master's program in India. And yes, you will have to list both of those experiences, your education and your work experience, in your immigration forms. Kumaravel is asking, hi, I did not accept Ontario invitation as my application is in progress with Quebec province already. So my question is, will I be considered in Ontario next draw too, as I did not progress? The fact that you did not accept the invitation does not disqualify you from being considered for any other future draws. Okay. Ahmed is asking the question regarding his landing situation. So he says, if I land in Toronto to get COPR stamped and the city in permanent resident application and COPR is in Alberta, can I stay in Toronto for a few days, or I need flight tickets from Toronto? No, you can stay in Toronto. As soon as you have your stamp on your COPR, you're a Canadian permanent resident and you can travel wherever you want. Simran Deepcore is asking, can I claim 2 knock codes? If you claim them for 2 different work experience, then yes, but for any specific work experience, any one work experience, you would need to choose one knock code. If you are uncertain as to what knock code to use, you have to compare your duties and you have to match the lead statement. And let me show you what it looks like. So if you search for knock 2021, 2021, and then let's go in, let's go in here, and then banking, for example. And then you open any particular knock code. So the statement that you see at the top is a lead statement. Your job duties have to match exactly what is written in the lead statement. And then here you have the main duties, and your job duties must match the majority of those knock duties. So if there are 5 duties, you would want to aim for about 4 out of 5. You don't need to have all 5, but you have to have more than half. And we lean towards 75% match. So if you still fit somewhere in between 2 knock codes, maybe you can book a consult and we can take a look. Jalei Vang, thanks for the clarification. You're welcome. Batik, this is the 3rd time that you posed the same question. Okay. A question from the member of our channel. Does the amount in the proof of funds matter for H1B open work permit? I applied for open work permit with that proof of funds, but I do not have enough funds in my account at that time. I did not have enough funds. So the officer may ask you to show that you have enough funds to settle in Canada. So that is important. What's the difference in time processing between PNP and regular express entry? Which one is faster? That really depends on the province and the express entry. So the processing times, they differ, and for some people whose application is really routine, it can take as short as a couple of months. For some people whose applications are routine, it can take a couple of years. That really depends if you fall into that list of people who they want to check through the extensive background checks. Cannot answer that question. But in general, express entry should take less time, because once you submit the profile and if you're eligible to receive an ITA, you can get drawn, let's say, the next day, and then your application gets right into processing. With the PNP, you have to get a nomination, so you have to apply through the PNP, get a nomination. With that nomination, you have to go for the federal stage of your application processing, so it may take longer. All right, guys, I'll have to wrap it up. Maybe one last question, and I'll have to say goodbye to all of you because we have a team meeting coming up. Aboud is asking, my CRS 475 and the postgrad will be expired in June 2024. Am I in a stable situation? Aboud, I don't know. I don't know how much work experience you have, where you are. Do you qualify under any of the PNPs already, or what is your CRS score? I'm not sure. We can take a look at your individual situation at the consult and develop a strategy that would work for you. Sahil, I've answered your question already. Yes, I will go into the H1B community group and take a look at this at the comments. Okay, Malika saying, I applied for PR on May 15th, have not received any updates yet. How long is it taking nowadays? Let's take a look. RCC processing times, and I assume that you applied under Express Entry. So if we go in here and then economic immigration, and then let's put skilled workers federal, processing times 5 months. So that really depends on what's happening in your file. Maybe did you receive a biometrics instruction letter? Anything? Okay. Camby is saying, hi, in transport category, most of the not-code work experience is rotation contract based. For example, deck officer, marine engineer. Does visa office understand these kind of profile backgrounds? Camby, that really depends on the officer. Some officers do, some officers are just newly trained, newly hired. RCC hired lots of new officers to process the increasing amount of applications. So what you as an applicant can do, you can write a letter of explanation explaining why you've been working from time to time and how your contract and rotation was happening. You can provide a number of hours that you worked in each particular location and do anything that is needed to explain the officer who might not understand it. You don't want to assume that they all understand it by per se. You want to do your part to explain it in case they don't understand it. Okay. Surya is saying, my H1B open work permit still not received. Website shows 3 weeks, but it's more than 8 weeks now. Should I contact RCC? Yes, you can shoot them a web form, or you can request a GCMS note to learn what's happening with your file. But do note that there are 10,000 other H1B applicants, and resources of the RCC are quite limited, so it may take longer. All right, guys, I'll have to drop off, and I appreciate you joining me for this live Q&A. If you have any questions, feel free to book a consult and we can talk in detail, or connect with myself and Alicia tomorrow, and we're going to do another live Q&A at noon Mountain Daylight Time. In the meantime, do not forget to check our website. If you're looking for more information, we have a blog, we have a podcast, and then we have a website called CanadianImmigrationInstitute.com, where we sell a step-by-step video course on Express Entry. We have a course on study permits, spousal sponsorship. So those courses are prepared by Mark Holthe, and they contain step-by-step instructions as to how you can prepare the application, how you can write the letter of explanation, what should be included in the reference letters, and other aspects of the Express Entry application process that you might be wondering about. So do check that out, and then consider subscribing to the Express Entry course, because from 25th to 28th of September, we're going to have a masterclass where Mark will connect with you for 1 hour and have this sort of like private live Q&A with only those who subscribe to the course. So check that out, and I'll see you tomorrow at noon Mountain Daylight Time. Have a good day, everyone. Bye.